All right, hi. My name is Jeff Witz. I am the Director of Business Development at Medicus Asset Advisors. I'm also the Educational Program Director. So what that means is I usually travel the country giving lectures like this. Obviously, over the last couple of years, a lot of that has been done much more virtually. So thank you for joining. Quick background on Medicus. We've been educating and advising physicians for over 30 years. Over 90% of our clients are physicians, and we manage just over $1 billion in physician assets. So we feel like we're particularly tuned into the financial needs of physicians and understand what physicians are looking for when it comes to their personal financial management. Now, some quick disclaimers I'm always required to give. We are affiliated with a broker-dealer, Osdale Financial Partners. That allows us to buy securities and insurance products with our clients. And we're also registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. That allows us to provide wealth management advice and recommendations to our clients. So today we're here to talk about personal financial management. Why is that important? Well, it's important that you have or at least a basic understanding of personal financial concepts and strategies, because to be honest, you are likely to make, as physicians, millions of dollars throughout your entire career. It's important you understand these concepts, you know how to manage that money, and hopefully grow that money long term. Why else is it important? Well, as potential high earners, you're likely to be approached by a lot of financial professionals throughout your career. It's important you understand these concepts and strategies so that you can evaluate the ideas that they're presenting to you on how to help you grow your wealth, so you can decide which one's really going to be the best option for you. So today, that's what we're going to cover is the basic concepts and strategies to personal financial planning, so that you can hopefully make smart financial decisions throughout your lifetime. Taking a look at what we're going to cover today, again, just starting off with an introduction to personal financial management. We'll then talk about risk management and the importance of disability and life insurance for physicians. And we'll also talk asset accumulation, get you started to think about saving and investing and why that's going to be important to you. I will stick around and answer as many questions as people have. So if you have any questions, do put them in the chat. I have found that it's easier to answer them at the end when doing these virtual sessions. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and I'd be happy to stick around and answer as many of them as possible at the end. All right, so let's jump into it. So our 30 years of experience has taught us that not every physician is financially successful. And I think that that's really important to know and remember, not only as we go through the presentation today, but also as you progress through your entire lifetime. Not every physician is financially successful. In fact, a lot of physicians, when they initially come to us, are still living paycheck to paycheck, even though they're making 5, 10, 20 times as much as they were during their residency and fellowship years. And there are a lot of reasons that we see for why this occurs, but the most common one we see for early career physicians is a term we like to use called lifestyle creep. Now, during your residency, or if you go on to do a fellowship, during those years, you're not earning a lot. And then as an attending, you're maybe earning more money than you ever have in your entire lifetime. And there's often this desire to start increasing your standard of living really rapidly. We see a lot of physicians go out and buy a $1 million home with a 0% down physician loan. They go out and buy new cars. They start eating at fancier restaurants. And what happens is you start consuming a lot of this higher income that you're earning. And you will have certainly earned the right to increase your standard of living, but it's important to do it in a careful and planned out way. Do you need to buy the $1 million home right out of training? Or could you purchase a more modest condo that could potentially, become an investment property one day? Because what happens is by making big financial decisions kind of right out of the starting gate, sometimes later on when you realize I need to be saving more for my retirement, I need to be saving more for my kids' college educations, whatever those financial goals are, you suddenly don't have the cash flows available because you've made some big financial decisions kind of right out of the starting gate. So again, you will have certainly earned the right to increase your standard of living, but do it in a careful and planned out way. So again, our first message is to remember that not every physician is financially successful. However, those who are tend to share some common characteristics. And so that's what we want to go over today, the common characteristics of financially successful physicians. And the first common characteristic of a financially successful physician is they have clearly defined goals. That means they know exactly what they want, or at least close to it. What that does is allows you to design a detailed financial plan for how you're going to accomplish those goals. We've got a saying in our office that vague goals often result in vague plans. And if you've got a vague plan, it's really easy to deviate from that plan and get off track. So you have to be specific about your goals so that you can create a detailed financial plan for accomplishing that goal. Now, what do we mean when you have to be specific? Well, all areas of personal financial management have its own set of questions that need to be asked and answered. For time purposes tonight, I thought we would just focus on retirement. So when thinking about retirement and being specific about your retirement goal, well, what age do you want to retire at? What level of after-tax inflation-adjusted income are you going to want each year in retirement? What rate of return are you going to have to earn on your investments, not only leading up to retirement, but in retirement as well, so that you don't run out of money before you run out of life? And then what are the sources of your savings? Is it coming from your salary? Is it coming from bonuses? Is it coming from a spouse's salary or bonuses? So by answering these types of questions, you can start formulating a plan. And that plan may look like, if I want to retire at age 60 and have $150,000 a year of after-tax inflation-adjusted income, I need to be saving X dollars every month. I need to be placing that money into accounts A, B, and C. And those, I need to invest that money in a certain way that's going to earn at least an average of 7% rate of return. And I'm going to get that savings again directly from my income. So that's how being specific about your goal can create a detailed plan for accomplishing that goal. So again, you have to be specific about what you want so you can create those plans. The next common characteristic of financially successful physicians is they know what they make each month, they know what they need to save each month for all of their important financial goals, and they know how much they have to spend each month on those necessary spending items, rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance, food, clothing, all those things that you have to spend money on. Now, what is a common tool that you can use to track how much money you're bringing in and how much money is going out to certain spending and savings items? Well, it's a budget. And I really can't express enough how important having a budget and sticking to that budget is. Our clients who have a budget and have been disciplined about sticking to that budget pretty much across the board have been on track to reaching their financial goals. And some are even ahead of where they thought that they would be. Some will be able to retire at a younger age. Some will be able to retire with a higher level of income. Unfortunately, the other side of that coin holds true as well. Our clients who never created a budget or haven't been disciplined about sticking to it across the board have slowly started to fall behind on their goals. And unfortunately, we're going to have some tough discussions with them in the future about they're either going to need to work longer or retire with a lower level of income. So can't express enough how important having a budget is in sticking to that budget. Now, if you've never created a budget before, maybe it's been a while, this is the formula that we prefer. So in this formula, first thing you have is your take-home income. And first thing you do is you remove those necessary savings items, the amounts that you're saving for your retirement, your kids' college educations, maybe you're saving for a down payment on a home, put that money into the necessary savings accounts. Next, you have to pay all of those fixed expenses and mortgage, rent, utilities, insurance, food, clothes, those things that you have to spend money on. What's left over is your discretionary income. This is the money that you can, I kind of think of it as my entertainment money. Money that you can use to go out to nice dinners with friends, go to sporting events, go to concerts, all things that hopefully we can do with a much more regularity here in the near future. But this money is only available after you've satisfied your savings needs, necessary spending. So again, this is a formula that should help keep you on track. Now, as attendings, some or all of you may have the opportunity to earn production bonuses. In our opinion, bonuses should always go towards additional savings, not additional spending. If you are on track to your financial goal and put a big chunk of a bonus towards that goal, may help leapfrog you ahead. Again, maybe you can retire sooner. If you have fallen behind a little bit in terms of your goal, putting a big chunk of your bonus towards it may help catch you back up. So for us, bonuses should go towards additional savings, not additional spending. Now, there are a lot of tools out there that can help you budget. I know a lot of our clients use like mint.com. There are a lot of websites out there that can help you with your budgeting. I personally use Excel. If you're comfortable with Excel, you just enter all the items and all the formulas, and each month it kind of automatically updates itself. So overall, don't care what tool you use. It's just really important that you do have a budget and try to stick to it as closely as possible. All right, the next common characteristic of financially successful physicians is they know some basic financial concepts. And we'll spend a little bit of time in this section, but probably the most important financial concept for you to understand is the concept of compounding interest. Albert Einstein once said of compounding interest that it was man's greatest invention and the eighth wonder of the world. Pretty big accolades from someone like Albert Einstein, who came up with some pretty impressive theories of his own. So what is compounding interest, or compounding growth is another way to think about it. Well, compounding interest, you can think of it as interest on interest, and it's going to help your investments grow at a faster rate. How does it work? Well, let's say you make an investment and that investment's supposed to pay out interest or a dividend. And instead of taking that interest or dividend as cash and putting it in your pocket, you instead reinvest it back into that same investment. The next time that investment's supposed to pay out interest or a dividend, it's going to do so not only on the initial principal investment you made, but also the reinvested amount. I like to think of it as a snowball rolling downhill. With each rotation, that snowball is going to grow in size, it's going to grow in momentum, and hopefully by the time you reach a financial goal, like say your retirement, that snowball has reached such a size and has so much momentum that it can just churn out the income you need every single year to live the standard of living that you want. Now, what is the key to taking advantage of compounding interest? You have to start saving and investing early. The more rotations you can get on that snowball, the bigger impact it'll have on the amount of assets you have later in life. To kind of emphasize this point, we always like to include this example. So in this example, there are two people, Rachel and Ross. Both of them are age 27. Both of them are coming out of their medical school programs. Now, Rachel, she's a saver. She decides she wants to start saving for her retirement right away. So Rachel starts contributing $6,000 every single year, and she does this for 9 years until she reaches age 36. At age 36, Rachel says, you know what, I'm done saving for my retirement. I want to start spending my money. I'm just going to let what I already put aside grow using compounding interest. Now, Ross, on the other hand, Ross has a lot of student loan debt, and his debt's giving him a lot of anxiety. And so Ross decides that he needs to put every available dollar he has towards paying down his student loan debt as quickly as possible. So Ross doesn't start saving for his retirement until age 36, the same age that Rachel stopped contributing to her account altogether. Ross then contributes $6,000 every single year, and he does this for 29 years until he reaches retirement age 65. Well, what's the result so far? Well, over that 9-year period, Rachel has contributed $54,000 into her retirement account. Over that 29-year period, Ross has contributed 3 times as much to his retirement account. What is the result when they both reach retirement age 65? Well, it's often surprising, but Rachel has accumulated more assets than Ross. That is the beauty and the power of compounding interest, or compounding growth, afforded to those who can start saving and investing early. Just the 9 years of extra rotations that Rachel had on her retirement savings had a huge impact on the amount of money that she had later on in her lifetime. I'm sure you can imagine that if Rachel had continued saving for her retirement all the way until retirement age 65, her retirement savings would have blown Ross's out of the water. So you have to start saving and investing early. Later on in the presentation, we'll go over an example or a case study of how much money you may need to have saved for retirement. Bit of a spoiler, it is a big number. If you hope to get to that number, you have to start taking advantage of compounding growth as quickly as possible. Now, why else do I like to include this example in this presentation? Well, I speak to probably 100 physicians a year who are coming out of their residency and fellowship programs. And one of the things we ask them is about their student loan debt levels. And I'd say on average, most of them have somewhere between $200,000 and $500,000 of student loan debt. And we've certainly seen higher than that as well. And when we ask them, what is your plan for paying off this debt? The vast majority of them say, my plan is to just throw every available resource I have towards this debt and try and pay it off as quickly as possible. What we hope that this shows is that if you can find some sort of balance where you are putting something away for your retirement while also aggressively paying down your student loans, it can have a huge impact on the amount of assets that you have later on in your life. So really highly encourage you to work out in your budget how you can start saving and investing for your retirement or your financial future as soon as possible. Right, next section we want to do is risk management, and always like to start this section off with a question. That question is, what is your most valuable asset? What if I told you that this asset could generate over $10 million of income over the next 30 years? It's you, and it's your ability to practice and earn income in your specialty field. So what would happen if you became sick or disabled and were unable to practice and earn income in your specialty field? Would you still be able to afford that big mortgage you just took out? Would you still be able to save for your kids' college educations? Would you still be able to save for your retirement? Would you still be able to pay your student loans? Just because you're unable to work as a physician doesn't mean that those student loans suddenly go away. Well, this is where disability insurance comes into play. Now, some people think that disability insurance is an unnecessary added expense. We completely disagree with that, especially for physicians. Again, as physicians, you are going to have the opportunity to earn millions of dollars throughout your career. We think it's important to ensure that earning potential. I'm sure many of you have health insurance, you have car insurance. Why do you have those things? Well, it's to protect yourself from a severe financial loss in the event that something negative happens. So doesn't it make sense to protect your most valuable asset? Again, an asset that can generate millions of dollars of income throughout its career? We certainly think so. So there's really two types of disability insurance. There's short-term disability insurance. This is for disabilities lasting 6 months or less. Or there's long-term disability insurance. This is for disabilities lasting 6 months or longer. I'll be honest with you, we don't recommend a whole lot of short-term disability insurance in our office. What we recommend that you have is an emergency fund. An emergency fund is cash that you set aside in the event that you can't work for a couple of months. If you have an emergency fund, you've effectively self-insured yourself for a short-term disability, so you don't need to pay the 30 or 40 bucks a month or whatever they're going to ask you to pay for a short-term disability policy because you've already covered yourself. Now, the general rule of thumb on an emergency fund is if you are a dual income household, you want about 3 months of your necessary expenses saved up in cash. If you are a single income household or one person earns significantly more than the other person, which can often be the case in physician families, 6 months to even a year is what's recommended for your emergency fund. Why else do we prefer the emergency fund to a short-term disability policy? Well, short-term disability policy is only going to pay out if you're sick or disabled and unable to work. Emergencies come in a lot of different forms. Maybe your car breaks down and you need to buy a new car, or you have a sudden repair on your home. An emergency fund just has a lot more versatility that you can use it for. Now, if you do tap into your emergency fund for any reason, it should be a top number one priority to replenish that account. We have seen emergency funds save our clients time and time again. Really what it does is it prevents you from having to make a financial decision that's not in your best interest. Because you have that emergency fund, now you don't have to tap into the savings you were putting together for a home or tap into your retirement savings. So again, it really ensures that hopefully you can continue on a healthy financial path without having to, again, dip into maybe some savings accounts that you didn't want to. So again, short-term disability, not something we recommend all that much. However, long-term disability insurance is definitely something we recommend that every physician have. How does long-term disability insurance work? Well, typically the insurance companies are willing to insure you up to about 60 to 70% of your pre-disability income. So to keep the math easy on me, if you earn $100,000 a year, they're willing to insure you up to about $60,000 to $70,000, $70,000 of that. Now, why won't they insure you for 100% of your pre-disability income? Well, let's say that you're disabled and receiving your disability benefit, but then through medication, physical therapy, treatment, whatever it is, you become healthy enough to go back to work. You don't really have a whole lot of incentive to go back into the workforce because you're already making 100% of what you would be making while not working. The insurance companies recognize this, and so they typically cap the disability benefit at about 60 to 70% of your income, with the idea that that extra 30 to 40% of earning potential, enough to incentivize you to get back into the workforce if you're healthy enough to do so. Now, I review probably 100 benefit packages a year for physicians. And I will say the majority of employers do provide some form of long-term disability insurance. Common language within a benefit package is we'll cover 60% of your salary up to a monthly maximum benefit of $10,000 a month. Well, as physicians, you have to make much more than $10,000 a month. So there's a gap. There's a gap between the insurance your employer provides and what we would consider being kind of fully insured. So many physicians need to go out and purchase a supplemental disability policy to close that gap in their coverage. Now, when shopping for a supplemental disability policy, there are a couple of key things to pay attention to. The first is the waiting period or elimination period. This is how long you have to be sick or disabled and not working before the insurance kicks in and starts paying you out any sort of benefit. Common waiting periods are 90 days, 180 days, and 360 days. Usually what you want to try and do is align the waiting period with the size of your emergency fund. The idea there being once you've exhausted the emergency fund, the disability insurance kicks in, so you don't have any gaps in your income. The benefit period, this is how long the policy will actually pay out the benefit. We always recommend a physician get a benefit period to their full retirement age, 65 or 67. The idea there being if you became disabled, say the week after getting approved for a policy and permanently disabled, you would want that policy to pay out that benefit every single month until you reach your normal retirement age, 65 or 67. The monthly benefit amount, this is pretty straightforward. This is how much the policy will actually pay you out each month. Now, this is likely to be different for everyone. The way the insurance companies determine what benefit amount they will offer you is, again, they never want you to be above that 60 to 70% range. So they'll take a look at how much you're earning. Salaries are likely to vary across employers, vary across geographic regions. They're also going to look at how much disability insurance your employer is providing you, because combined between what they offer and what your employer offers, they never want you to get above that 60 to 70% range. With benefit packages varying across employers as well, everybody's monthly benefit amount is likely to be a little bit different. Now, the only time where it might be a little bit standardized is while you're still in your training. Most supplemental disability companies will allow you to get up to $5,000 of monthly benefit while you are still in your training. So that's usually pretty close to 100% of your income. So that's usually a pretty good deal there. The most important thing to pay attention to when shopping for a supplemental disability policy is the definition of disability. We always recommend a physician get a true own occupation definition of disability policy. What that means is that it is specialty specific. So if you are unable to work in your specialty area, but maybe you're still able to work in an administrative role or a teaching role, doesn't matter. The fact that you can't work in your specialty means the policy will still pay you out 100% of your benefit. Compare that to some other definitions of disability that are out there. Some of the other definitions say if you're able to work in some other job, the income that you're earning in that other job will reduce the benefit that the policy pays out. And if you're earning enough at that other job, it may completely eliminate the policy from paying out a benefit. Other definitions say if you're able to work in any capacity at all, the policy is not going to pay out a benefit. Disability insurance, supplemental disability insurance is not inexpensive. You could be looking at paying hundreds of dollars a month in terms of the premium. So for us, we don't think it makes sense to get a policy that has a definition that could potentially not pay out. Again, if you're paying that much, you better have a policy that'll pay out under a number of different circumstances. And that is the true own occupation definition of disability. It's the strongest definition you can get. Now, often I'm asked, when should I get a supplemental disability policy? And we think you should get one really as soon as possible. Couple of reasons for that. Right now, you are the youngest and healthiest you'll ever be. Youngest disability insurance, just like life insurance, is priced based off of the age you are when you get it. So the younger you are when you get the coverage, the lower the premium will be that's locked in. Health-wise, when you apply for disability insurance, there's an application. As part of that application, you are going to sign a HIPAA release form. The underwriters are going to go look through your past 5 to 10 years of medical history, see if there's anything that in there that would concern them, or maybe they wouldn't want to cover you. The younger you are, the less likely there are to be major red flags in your medical history where that may be a circumstance. Another reason to consider getting a policy while still in your training is the disability insurance companies usually offer a 15 to 20% discount if you get it while you're still in your training. These insurance companies know that if they can get you into one of their policies now, you are likely to keep that policy for the rest of your career. So they want to incentivize you, try and get you into one of their policies. So by applying now, essentially, greater chance of getting lower premiums, the greater chance of being approved or approved without any sort of exclusions, and you get the discount. So definitely worth looking into. If you are interested in exploring disability insurance, this is actually an area we can help with. We're not affiliated with any of the disability insurance companies. So what I can do is I can take your information, shop it around most of the disability insurance companies that are out there, and see who will offer you a policy with all the features we think are important for physicians to have, and who's going to offer it at the lowest price. Usually what I do is I find the 3 or 4 most competitively priced policies, put them in a comparison spreadsheet, we connect and go through them. If that's something you're interested in, the last slide of the presentation, I did put my contact information down. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to see how we can help you as much as we can. All right, the next area of risk management is life insurance. So many of the same questions that are asked with disability insurance are asked with life insurance. If I were to die prematurely, would my family still be able to afford that big mortgage we just took out? Would my kids' college education still be guaranteed? Would my significant other have to change jobs or go back to work? How would that impact the household? Would someone need to be brought in to help raise the kids? How's that going to be paid for? Life insurance can answer a lot of those questions. Now, at Medicus, there's really 2 types of life insurance that we tend to recommend. The first is term life insurance. Life insurance works almost exactly as it sounds. It's in force for a certain term or a certain period of time. Common terms are 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and 30 years. If you die within that term, that policy is going to pay out the full death benefit to your beneficiary or beneficiaries. If you outlive the term, typically the insurance goes away. You're not going to get any of your premiums back. However, because of that, term life insurance tends to be significantly less expensive than cash value or oftentimes referred to as whole life insurance. Now, cash value or whole life insurance, again, works exactly as it sounds. It's in force for your entire life. When you make a premium payment, there's really 2 pieces to the life insurance. There's the life insurance portion, but then there's also an internal cash value account. So when you make a premium payment, a portion goes towards paying for the life insurance. The other portion goes towards funding that internal cash value account. That cash value account is yours. It is a savings account for you. It does produce a fairly modest return on it. Some people use them as a supplemental retirement account. Other people build them up to the point where they can pay for the premiums just directly out of the cash value. Now, again, most of our clients tend to go with term life insurance. The reason for that being is it is significantly less expensive. So we did get some actual quotes a couple of weeks ago. So in these examples, there is a 30-year-old individual. They want $1 million of life insurance. For the term, that we went with a 30-year term. Now, for men, that amount of coverage costs about $57 a month. For women, about $46 a month. If we're looking at whole life insurance, you can see it jumps up pretty significantly. Now it's $267 a month for men, $225 a month for women. Why is life insurance more expensive for men than it is for women? Well, unfortunately, guys, we tend to die younger. The insurance companies do factor that into their pricing. Actually, that reminds me, one thing I forgot to bring up in the disability section is disability insurance is significantly more expensive for women than it is for men. The reason for that is complications that can arise during pregnancy. The disability insurance companies do price that in. So if you know or suspect that you may become pregnant at some point, highly encourage you to get a disability policy before you do. Unfortunately, I've had a number of women clients who have been completely rejected for disability coverage for what we consider to be fairly minor complications that arose during pregnancy. So again, if you know or plan to become pregnant at some point, highly encourage you to get a disability policy beforehand. But getting back to the life insurance, what are the most common reasons that we see people get life insurance? One is they own a mortgage. Most people want to make sure that the balance of the mortgage is paid off, so surviving families not stuck trying to pay that maybe on a single income stream now. They want to make sure that their kids' college educations are guaranteed. And then they want to provide a certain standard of living for a certain number of years. And that can vary. Some people say, I want to provide a standard of living for the next 5 years after I'm gone. Some people want to provide a standard of living until their children are off or turn 18 or are off to college. Some people want to provide a standard of living for the remainder of their significant other's life. Depending on where you land on that spectrum can dramatically increase how much life insurance you can need. But those are the most common reasons that people get life insurance. And for many of those, they are temporary life insurance needs. That's why we do see term life insurance used most commonly. If you're trying to insure the balance of your mortgage, well, a mortgage is usually 15 years or 30 years. But once the mortgage is paid off, the need to insure that goes away. So your insurance need can drop off there. Saving for your kids' college educations. Once your kids are off to college, if you've saved appropriately, the insurance need goes away. So you can get cheaper life insurance that just insures kind of certain time periods or covers certain time periods. So that's why a lot of our clients do go with term life insurance. Right, last section here is kind of strategies for your investments and asset accumulation. I again want to start getting you thinking about saving and investing as soon as possible. And to do that, we always like to start off with a case study. So in this case study, there's a physician that wants to retire today, and they want to retire and have $10,000 of inflation-adjusted monthly income that's going to last for 30 years. Now, what does inflation adjusted mean? Well, we've heard a lot about inflation in the news recently. Inflation is the idea that goods and services get more expensive over time. So what $10,000 can purchase today is going to be a whole lot more than it can purchase 10, 20, 30 years from now. So this physician doesn't want to lose any purchasing power. Assuming a 3% rate of inflation, which again, inflation's been much higher recently, but that is the historical rate of inflation and really what the Fed tries to target as a healthy rate of inflation. In year one, this physician will take out $10,000 a month. In year two, to maintain that same purchasing power, they'll have to take out $10,300 a month. Year three, $10,667 a month. So each year they're going to have to take more and more out so that they're not losing purchasing power. But again, so in this example, there's a physician that wants to retire today. They want to have $10,000 a month of inflation-adjusted monthly income, and they want that income to last for 30 years. So how much money does this physician need to have saved to accomplish that goal? About $3.6 million. That's a pretty significant amount of money. Now, if the rate of return on their investments is higher in retirement, the rate of inflation is lower, they may not need quite as much. But if the rate of return on their investments is lower, rate of inflation is higher, they may need more than $3.6 million. But $3.6 million is a fair conservative estimate for how much this physician would need to have saved to accomplish that income goal. Now, why does $3.6 million not apply to you guys? Well, when are you going to retire? Probably not for another 20, 30, 40 years. What's going to come into play during that time period? Inflation. What 3.6 million can purchase today, it's going to be a whole lot more that it can purchase 20, 30, 40 years from now when you're retiring. So how much money might you need to have saved in your retirement account to have that just that same $10,000 a month of income? $8.7 million. That is a significant amount of money. How are you going to get there? You have to start saving and investing as soon as possible. You have to get that compounding growth working for you as soon as possible. Now, before you completely panic looking at this number, hopefully there is also wage inflation during that time period. So your ability to save hopefully is increased as well. But still, it is a significant number. So how are you going to get there? Well, you're going to save, but you're also going to invest. Now, from a very simplistic standpoint, Loan ownership assets are better for short-term goals. And in this chart, your loan ownership assets are your corporate bonds, long-term government bonds, and your treasury bills. Ownership assets, which in this chart are your small stocks and common stocks, are better for long-term investment goals. Now, loan ownership assets, they don't have as high of a potential for gain, but they don't have as high of a or low of a potential for loss. So there's a lot less fluctuation that happens with those types of investments. So let's say you are saving for a down payment on your home and you hope to purchase that home in just the next couple of years. Well, you probably don't want that savings invested in the market or in the stock market where things could fluctuate a lot. Last thing you want is to go into the week that you need to make a down payment on your home and have the market drop 10 or 20%. Now, maybe you don't have that down payment available. So for short-term goals, you want to be a lot more conservative with how you are saving and investing that money. Low ownership assets, again, not going to get a ton of gain, especially right now in a low interest rate environment, but you're not going to get the loss. That money is going to be there, which is the most important thing. Now, for long-term investment goals, like say your retirement, you can afford the short-term fluctuations in the market. What you are trying to do is take advantage of the long-term upward trajectory of the equity markets or the stock markets. If you look at the charts of the S&P 500, the Dow, the NASDAQ, Russell 2000, which is the small cap index, or the MSCI EAFE index, which is the international index, and you look at their histories, the upward trajectory is always upwards. And that's what you're trying to take advantage of. So your ownership assets, your stocks, equities, better for those long-term goals because you have the time to ride out those short-term fluctuations and just take advantage of long-term growth. So again, from a very simplistic standpoint, low ownership assets, better for your short-term goals. Ownership assets, equity, stocks, better for your long-term investment goals. Now, what are some of the top reasons for long-term investment loss? Let's talk about some of the mistakes that investors make most commonly. The two biggest mistakes that investors make are the first two here, euphoria and panic. Euphoria and panic are emotional responses to what's happening. Euphoria, say an investment or the markets have been shooting through the roof, and after things have gone up a bunch, you don't want to miss out on the action, so you buy in. Panic, maybe the markets are down 20, 30, 40%. You're scared you're going to lose all of your money. So after the market's gone down a bunch, you pull what's left of your money out so that you at least hold on to some of it. Well, in these circumstances, with euphoria, you are buying high, and with panic, you are selling low. And that's kind of different than the fundamental investment premise of buying low and selling high. So euphoria and panic, again, emotional responses to what's happening out there. You really need to try and keep your emotions in check when investing. So I guess the best way to say this is your own emotions are the greatest threat to your investment portfolio. So the best thing to do is come up with an investment plan. An investment plan will tell you when you're going to buy and sell investments, what types of investments you're going to buy and sell, and how much you're going to invest or sell. By sticking to that plan, it can help you remove your emotions from investing so that hopefully you don't make some pretty significant mistakes, which unfortunately we have seen a number of people do by reacting emotionally to what's happening in the markets. Another common reason for long-term investment loss is investors are afraid of change. Maybe it's an investment that you've held for a while, or maybe it's an investment that your parents or grandparents took out for you. It may be a good investment, but it's important that you monitor that investment, make sure it's performing to expectation. And if it's not, don't be afraid to make a change. There's no bonus points for loyalty when it comes to investing. You need to be in the strongest investments possible. Another common reason we see for investment loss is investors believe that information equals wisdom. Can't tell you how many times I've had a client reach out and say, I just read about this new medical device online. I think it's going to be the next big thing. I want to invest. Well, it may end up being a good investment, but a lot more research needs to go into it than just what you read in an online article. Unfortunately, there are publications paid to specifically promote companies or products, publications paid to specifically bash companies or products. So it's difficult to know if you're really getting accurate and unbiased information. So Anytime you're considering an investment, make sure you do thorough research. If you're not sure how to do that, we would encourage you to speak with a financial professional. They should be able to tell you the strengths and weaknesses of that investment and how it may fit into your overall investment strategy. Other common reasons for long-term investment loss, a really common one is investors are under-diversified. So let's say that you have all of your retirement savings in Apple stock, and the next iPhone's not very good, and so Apple stock drops 10 or 20%. Well, now your entire retirement savings just dropped 10 or 20% along with it. You have to be diversified. And at Medicus, we help our clients do that by investing them in mutual funds and ETFs. ETF stands for exchange traded fund. What these are is they are baskets of investments. So one fund may invest in 500 or 5,000 different companies. And by investing in that one specific fund, you're essentially invested in all 500 or 5,000 companies that fund invests in. The idea there being if one of the companies in that fund has a bad year, you've got the other 499 or 4,999 companies in there to help prop up their performance. So diversification is key to remove a lot of risk. Now, it is also possible to be over diversified. We have had a number of physicians come to us who have 30 or 40 different mutual funds. Well, if you look at the prospectuses of those funds and look at the top 10 holdings, you're going to see a lot of similar names. You're going to see a lot of Apples and Amazons and Microsofts and Berkshire Hathaways and Exxon Mobils, those big giant US corporations. So by owning a lot of funds that have a lot of overlap, you can kind of unintentionally become over allocated to a select number of companies. And what that does is it just invites more risk into your investment strategy. So you're better off choosing a more limited number of funds, maybe 10 to 15 different funds. Make sure that they're all invested in different categories, different sectors, so that there's as little overlap as possible. And that's going to get you some really effective diversification. Last one here, unmanaged costs. If you do invest in mutual funds and ETFs, do be aware that they charge an expense ratio, an annual fee. There are some very inexpensive index funds that are out there, but there's also some actively managed funds that will charge you, 1% or 1.5% compared to an index fund that may charge you, 0.05%. If you are looking at a fund that has a higher expense ratio, make sure the rate of return that they're earning justifies that higher expense. So do be aware of the expenses in the funds that you're investing in. Also, if you work with a financial professional, make sure you understand how they are compensated and make sure that what you are paying them is being justified by the service that you receive. So these are the most common reasons for long-term investment loss. The big ones are euphoria and panic, which again is you. You are the greatest risk to your investment. So you have to come up with a plan that kind of removes emotion from the formula there. So next, we want to talk about, what are the key determinants of long-term investment success? And there was a Nobel Prize-winning study that looked to figure this exact thing out. And from their study, they found that there were 3 key determinants of long-term investment success. 5% of long-term investment success is based off of security selection. That's what bonds, stocks, mutual funds, ETFs you're invested in. Only 5% of your success is based off of that. 2% market timing, the idea of buying low and selling high. 93% of your long-term investment success is based off of asset class selection or your asset allocation mix and how well that allocation applies to where you're at in your lifetime. Now, what do we mean by an asset allocation mix? Well, usually when you're investing, you want to be dividing up your money into a bunch of different categories, and what percentage you're putting into each one of those categories at different stages in your life is going to be very important for your long-term success. What are those categories? Well, you've got large cap, small cap, international, domestic bonds, international bonds, real estate, and cash. What do those categories mean? Well, large cap is companies valued at $10 billion or more. These are, again, your big US corporations, your Apples, Amazons, Exxon Mobils, the big US corporations. Small cap, these tend to be companies valued at $10 billion or less. Small cap companies usually want to become large cap companies. So they're engaging in some riskier business operations to try and grow and expand and increase their value. So there is increased risk with that category, but it can come with some increased rewards as well. International is usually broken down between companies from developed countries outside the US or emerging markets located outside the US. Domestic bonds, this is typically a split between US government bonds and US corporate bonds. If Verizon Wireless wants to expand their 5G network and doesn't want to tap into their cash reserves, they may issue bonds where they ask for people to lend them money and they promise to pay them an interest rate in return. So they can use that lended money towards whatever project they're working on. And again, they pay the lender, which is often individuals or funds, interest rate in return. International bonds, same thing, except for governments and companies located outside the US. And then real estate, don't think of real estate as your primary residence or even an investment property. This is more real estate projects that most of us don't have the money to participate in individually. Industrial real estate, retail, educational. If they build a new skyscraper in downtown Chicago, most of us don't have the money to participate in a real estate project like that. However, you can invest in funds that do invest in those projects. And by investing in those funds, you can then be invested in those types of projects. So again, what percentage of your money you are putting into each one of those categories and how well it aligns at different stages of your life is the key determinant of your long-term success. Now, what does it mean by the percentage at different stages of my life? Well, when you're young and let's say you're saving for your retirement, it's likely that you'll have a high percentage of your investments in stocks and equities in those ownership categories because you're trying to get a higher rate of return. But then maybe as you are approaching retirement, you start transitioning a percentage of that portfolio more into your ownership assets, into your bonds, because you're going to need that money to be there in retirement to produce income. Maybe even further into retirement, you increase that percentage into bonds even further. So how well or what percentages you're choosing and how well those percentages align at different stages of your life are, again, going to be the key to your long-term investment success. If you are unsure how to figure out what percentage should go into each one of those categories, we'd be happy to help you. We can sit down with you, talk about your risk tolerance and what you'd feel most comfortable with and help you figure that out. It's just too important to get right. We encourage you to take advantage of that. And again, I do have my contact information on the last slide, so please feel free to reach out. So in conclusion, the common characteristics of financially successful physicians. The first one is they have clearly defined goals. Again, having a clearly defined goal allows you to create a detailed financial plan for how you're going to accomplish that goal. They know what they make, they need to save and have to spend. Again, can't express enough the importance of having a budget and sticking to that budget. The correlation between having one and achieving your financial goals is pretty clear. Next, you have to know some basic financial concepts. The most important one is that concept of compounding growth. You saw that big number that you may need to have saved for your retirement. If you hope to reach a number like that, you have to start saving and investing as soon as possible. Other important financial concepts: protect your income with disability insurance, protect yourself with life insurance as well. And then finally, have a reasonable sense of urgency. Our experience has been that the number one reason that physicians fail financially is procrastination. Oftentimes, you guys know the things that you have to do to be financially successful long-term. Whether you've watched a session like this or you've done your own research online, physicians know the things that they have to do. However, things tend to get pushed to the back burner. The most common excuse we hear is some variation of life gets in the way. And we understand you have busy schedules, limited free time. The last thing you want to do is really spend time on this, but you have to implement the mechanisms that are going to allow you to be financially successful long-term. So please be proactive and get some of these things in place. All right, thank you very much for listening. Here is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out if anybody has any additional questions. You want to explore disability or life insurance quotes, happy to help you there as well. Or if you're looking for help putting together an asset allocation mix, happy to help you. All right. Thank you for listening. I'll answer any questions that anyone has.